What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into a live edition of Falcons Today. Matthew Peterson here with you guys, talking about some draft content out there, some of the rumors and the buzz from the Senior Bowl, along with some cut candidates for the Dirty Birds, as we are a little over a month away from NFL free agency. But as always, shout out your city for me in the chat. I love to see where people are tuning in from, so don't be a stranger. Scroll on down. Let me know where you are watching from. I'll give some shout-outs over the next few minutes, and then we'll jump into our first segment on today's live show. I've got Matthew Petey fan, I think, correcting. Wow, you guys are really punctual, and I love that, except for the person that called me Perry. And I'm sorry. The reason why I was late was I had to change my shirt. I had a red shirt, and the green screen was not cooperating with the red shirt on a red background, so I had to run to the changing room and put on this shirt instead. Let's see. Philip in Cedartown, Georgia, home of Nick Chubb. Let's see. Jesse Joyner, North Carolina. I've got Bowling Green, Ohio in the chat. Matthew Bullock watching from Wolverhampton, England. That is definitely the furthest viewer of today, so thank you and cheers to you for watching. Not to make every single live show somehow World War II related, but I did just finish Masters of the Air, which was a great show on Apple TV. It's kind of like a newer Band of Brothers, and most of it was kind of set in England. So, cheers to you. Let's see. Jace is watching from Indianapolis. I'm going to Indianapolis. I think I'm going, right? That was kind of the message we got from James for the NFL Combine. And I was texting one of my friends from Atlanta about what I should ask Raheem Morris, Terry Fontenot, if I'm lucky enough to get the opportunity when they speak to the media. What I'm working with right now is in like a serious manner for one and a joking manner for another. For Raheem and or Terry, the serious question is, do they plan to move Jake Matthews to right tackle and Caleb McGarry to left tackle since Penix is a lefty? That's kind of the serious question where I'd really love to know the answer. And then the joking one is Raheem Morris playing Madden to learn how to manage the clock? / I'm not really joking. Are you playing video games for better clock management skills? Jose Gonzalez is in the chat. I've got Thomas in ATL. Dave Jones, upstate New York. Love it, Lav. Okay, keep shouting out your city for me in the chat and like the video too if you haven't already. While I give a big special shout out to our friends over at Game Time. If you are trying to go to maybe a Hawks game or soon a Braves game or any other sporting event in your area, visit Game Time today, because with Game Time picks, you can filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Also, a big shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. Plus, they are from the Peach State. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Don't believe me? How about for the big game, they're putting Patrick Mahomes' passing yards at 0.5. Got a good feeling about this one, guys. So take the more on this, pair with one more, and you're ready to roll. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks. Run your game. Where were we? We were talking cities and combine. Also, this morning when I was putting together the framework for today's show, on our wing of the office, once more with another World War II reference, it's kind of like Stalingrad here, where we got the Chat Sports Army separated in two, because 40% of the crew works in one wing of the office, 60% works in another wing, while all the construction is being done on the original area of the bullpen that we worked in. And in our wing, people were talking about Whataburger and they're talking about Freebirds, which we got for lunch today, which is like a Texas burrito chain. And I'm bringing all this up because Texans residents and Texans will die on the hill of their local fast food chains are better than anyone else's. So what is the most overrated fast food chain in your opinion? I'm going to go with an unpopular opinion here. I'm going to say Taco Bell. I never actually enjoy myself after Taco Bell. Not that you usually enjoy yourself after fast food, but I genuinely regret and don't feel well. Not to sound like a pussy, but it always sucks. And I feel like it's a cool thing because it's kind of like an ongoing societal joke of, oh, it's Taco Bell, it's not really good. Yeah, no one actually really, I think, loves Taco Bell. Like, girls do in college when they're drunk, but after work, no, I'm not going to the Bell. So I'm way out on Taco Bell. Jace thinks Chipotle is kind of ass. I used to have this beef with Chipotle, and my TED Talk was Chipotle was great for 3 things. Quality, great ingredients. Quantity, huge portions. And price, pretty affordable. And they went downhill in all 3 phases. Their quality went down when they started, poisoning people with E. coli. The quantity went down when they started making tiny little burritos. And the price went up despite the quality and the size going down. But I feel like Chipotle has kind of turned a corner and gotten back on track a little bit. Let's see. Jaden feels a certain way for Burger King. Reed says you can never have Taco Bell when the sun is out. Yeah, I'm with you there. That's not a bad one. White Castle does stink. I haven't gotten White Castle since I was road tripping in college. It's been 7 or 8 years. In-N-Out from Carson. Yeah, I would agree. In-N-Out outside of California, I think, kind of stinks. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Coming up on today's show, we have some news and rumors. I'm very excited about this first segment. I think you guys will enjoy it. Then some cut candidates. I just thought this could be a good time to remind everyone about where Atlanta stands cap space-wise before free agency, how they can free up some extra money, and then we'll have a mailbag. So if you have any questions at all whatsoever, use hashtag Falcons or Super Chat. If you Super Chat, we guarantee your question gets on screen for everyone watching to see. So hashtag Falcons or Super Chat. Can you bring that a little bit closer to me? Watch your food. Yeah, I am sweating. We're in a different studio than we usually film in because the original studio we film in, we were about to start filming earlier, and the power just got cut off by the construction. So we had to migrate to studio. I don't even know where we are right now. KLM something. K. And it's hot. Christopher Reed, Zaxby's. I like Zaxby's. I'm not with you there. No. Matthew Petey fan, Jalen Milroe, no one should be looking to draft. He sucks. This happens every draft where you see a quarterback who went to a big-name school, and the school had success, so you got to think he's got to be halfway decent because they won all those games. No. He just sucks. That's just a fact. This is the wrong L3 for the next one. Jose, yeah, we'll have a mailbag. So use hashtag Falcons or Super Chat. 19 likes. Can we get one more like, get to 20, and then we'll jump into our first segment here. Oh, new guy. I'm sorry, Jose. I didn't mean to. What's like the equivalent of mansplaining for a hostplain? What we do in the mailbag is answer questions that you guys have. So if you're wondering anything under the sun related to the Falcons or the draft or the NFL or free agency, use hashtag Falcons somewhere in your message in the chat. That way our software can pull the question and we can put it on screen. Or Super Chat, and then we guarantee it gets on screen for all of our viewers to see. Jaden, great question. Please use hashtag Falcons. We're at 24 likes. There we go. Now, Thomas, welcome. Happy to have you as well. I'd love to get a question from the 2 new guys, from Jose and from Thomas. I'm going to put you on blast right now. I'm going to put the spotlight on you. Let's get a question from the newbies. Are we ready to jump into a live edition of Falcons Today? I think so. Let's get into it. I don't want to sound like the biggest egotistical person ever, but this is the one where Petey was right. Love me, probably don't. hate me, a lot of you do, for maybe getting a couple of things wrong last offseason, like Belichick, Fields, and Dallas Turner, whatever. Over the weekend, we put out a video that not many people watched, honestly. 5,000 views, which for our channel is far below average. And it was all about drafting Mike Green potentially, getting familiar with him. And what do you know? Fast forward to the first day of the Senior Bowl, and Mike Green is the #1 talk of the town player. Look at what he was doing out there. Very polar extremes. I'm not sure if it is one or the other there. Okay, AJ, I would say it's not going to be an extension. If anything, it'll be cut before he gets extended. That would be my guess. Are we ready to give it a second go? All right, here we go. Take 2. It's a live show, so cameras are rolling. F it. We'll do it live. I do like every once in a while when a blooper of the show happens because you guys do get to see how transparent it all is, and we're not perfect. Reed and I are just farting around over here talking Mike Green. So here we go. Take 2. I am ready for my Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode, the one where Petey was right. Because over the weekend, I put out a video talking about this kind of unknown draft prospect, a name that was rising certainly, but not at the front of every single draft savant's, forehead, and that was the edge rusher out of Marshall, Mike Green. We only got 5,000 views on the video, and fast forward to Wednesday, and this is the #1 player people are talking about at the Senior Bowl for this clip right here.
Plenty of smaller school players.
Mike Green just completely bulldozes left tackle, right tackle, Josh Connerly out of Oregon, who is projected to go in the first round. The Senior Bowl is good for a couple of things. It's good for scouts and GMs and coaches to see some of these players in person, up close, to see how they react to a bad play, a bad snap, and how they respond. And it's also a great opportunity for guys like Mike Green who play in the Sun Belt and don't go up against SEC teams every single Saturday and don't really come up on national radars across Mel Kipers of the world. And that's why I put a video out on Saturday talking all about this. So if you love that rep from Mike Green of completely bulldozing an offensive tackle at the Senior Bowl, I highly recommend you go watch this video after this video because you're going to love to learn more about him. And we were on it before that clip even came out and before the Senior Bowl started, which is why you got to subscribe. I know that I'm not going to bat 1,000, and last offseason I may have had some predictions that did not come to fruition. But I'll tell you what, I'll never stop making you guys content every single day. I'm always going to try and teach you something, inform you of something, and make sure you leave our video learning more than you did before you stepped in. So subscribe to the channel right now if you're looking for a free daily Falcons YouTube channel. Going back to Mike Green, though, because he is rising up draft boards, and a lot of Falcons fans want him to be the pick at 15, I thought these tweets were very interesting or might catch your interest. So Field Yates said that after the first day of the practice in the Senior Bowl, Mike Green has opted out, and I think it's a pretty good decision, meaning everyone has seen what they needed to see out of him, which is, hey, can you go up against, I wouldn't say real competition because that's so demeaning to the Sun Belt teams out there, but more notable competition, like a projected first-round pick out of Oregon. Yeah, I can. In fact, I'll put him on his back. All right? We got a lot of tweets out there of who was the best player in the offensive line. We got a lot of tweets out there of offensive linemen saying the best player we went up against today was Mike Green. There are reports of, hey, amongst defensive linemen, who's the best of the bunch here? Mike Green. The senior from Marshall is the talk of the town in Mobile, Alabama, and is definitely in the running for the Falcons at pick number 15. And I think, and this might be a bit of a reach, but I think if he has a great NFL combine, he could even go top 10. So we might need to pull back a little bit on the Mike Green support and propaganda because he may not even fall to the Falcons at 15, which sounds a little strange, but keep in mind, 2 years ago, no one was really talking about Trayvon Walker going top 5, top 10. All of a sudden, he's the first overall pick from the pre-draft process. I think Mike Green might be this year's Trayvon Walker. Not all the way to first overall, but he might creep up from being, hey, end of round 1 guy to top 10, top 15. He led the country in sacks with 17, finished second in tackles for loss. Now, the concern that I've seen some people have for Green, and it's not about him playing at Marshall, and it's not even so much about his size at 6'3", 251 pounds. I think he can play the outside linebacker role nicely in a 3-4 defense. The concern some people have is he someone who can play on first, second, and third down? If you are taking someone in the first round at this position, you are not looking for a specialist, right? You're not looking for someone who excels on third and long and obvious passing situations. You are ideally searching for someone who can play on first down and stop the run and set up your pass rush for second and third down. I personally don't have concerns over Green's ability to play in every situation possible. But other teams might have that concern. So that is just one thing to keep in the back of your mind. If your overarching thought still remains, you can't take this kid. He played at Marshall. Who did he play, Paul? Didn't go up against Alabama. Yeah, neither did Hassan Reddick. I think he's having a pretty good career. Neither did Khalil Mack from Buffalo. I like what he's up to. Neither did Jason Pierre-Paul with all of his rings, and more rings than fingers. Larry English for NIU, unfortunately, did not have a great career. Jason Badman had a very long career. All these are players that did not go to a traditional Power 4, Power 5 school. Went first round of the draft, and I see 4 players who had very long, successful careers, including one who I think is a future Hall of Famer, Khalil Mack. Also, if the size is an issue for you, 1, my fiance told me size does not matter. 2, TJ Watt came to the combine a few years ago, 6'4", 252 pounds. It's not very far off from where our friend Mike's at. On 6'3", 251. And I think that's the role for Mike Green, is he's not probably going to be a traditional defensive end in a 4-3 defense. I don't think he'll be as dynamic as Watt, who is so good in coverage, at creating takeaways, interceptions, who's so good at just having a nose for the football when it comes to forced fumbles. So yeah, if the bar is he's got to be as good as an NFL Defensive Player of the Year, then you may be disappointed. But I do think he has the capability of being a 10-plus sack guy who makes a few Pro Bowls in his career. So after seeing that viral clip from the Senior Bowl, do you want to draft Mike Green? Give me a yes or give me a no in the comment section. Would love to hear from you down below. All right, now next up on the show, I want to talk about a sleeper pick for round number 2. You know who you are, but someone commented, Petey, can you please talk about some round 2 draft targets? So that is what I want to do next on today's episode. But first, I got to give a big special shout out to Game Time. Game Time has this awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. You see, Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One thing I love about Game Time is they offer the Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. All that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. One name that I just want to put on your radar is the Ole Miss edge rusher, and I rehearsed pronouncing his last name 100 times, and I'm definitely going to get it wrong, but it's Princely Umana Ellen. It's like Ellen DeGeneres kind of at the end. Umana Ellen. Messages is clear for Atlanta Falcons fans. When it comes to size and production, the last 2 seasons, no one in this class has produced as much as me. So let's get to know a baller first name of a player, Princely, kind of like Prince Mukamura, which I can pronounce that name, no problem. 6'4", 264 pounds, so very good size altogether. I think he can be a versatile guy up front, and whether it's a five technique kind of wide nine or kicked out defensive end, or as an outside linebacker as well. Started his career off with the Gators and then transferred to Ole Miss, where he finished second in sacks in the SEC this past year with 10.5. And he's not joking about the production, which if you've watched our channel before, you know that when it comes to edge rushers, I highly value production because there's always a bazillion track stars in the draft, but I want football players, not guys who are here to throw the shot put in the javelin. So Princely, 10.5 sacks in 2024, 7 sacks and 12 tackles for loss in 2023. We're looking at someone who is not just a good pass rusher, but a great run stopper as well. So I'm thinking there could be a bigger possibility than maybe I want to acknowledge of, with it being such a deep defensive line class, there is a scenario where maybe like Will Johnson from Michigan, the corner, falls to 15, and the Falcons go, even though we desperately need pass rush help, and the number one spot to include your pass rush is at the front 7, we can circle back to this in round 2 and address our need at corner in round 1, knowing the combination of Will Johnson and Princely, for example, in round 2, might be a better duo than Mike Green and insert corner in round 2. That's just some food for thought with how deep this draft class is at the defensive line. Don't be blown away if they don't go edge in round 1 and they save it for round 2. If I had to put money down, I'm thinking they go edge in round 1. But if someone they love falls to them in round 1, they may not feel so pressured to go edge at that spot because they can come back to it later. Having said all this, I'll also say this as well. Do not rule out a trade back at pick number 15. Terry Fontenot's not working with a lot. We just looked at it. 5 picks. 2 of those are in round 7. So let's just say he's working with 3 picks, right? First, second, and a fourth. He might be very eager to pull off a trade. And so with that in mind, here is a trade idea that I could see happening. Chargers trade up from the 22nd spot to the 15th spot. And in exchange for moving back 7 spots, the Falcons acquire a 3rd-round pick, which they do not currently have because of the Matthew Judon trade, and a 5th-round pick. So now they are back in round 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, all for moving back 7 spots. Why would the Chargers move up? I think the Chargers really want to get a tight end. You know who else really wants a tight end? The Broncos at 20. It's not impossible if the Chargers go, yeah, we're also going to screw over one of our division rivals in the process of aiding and helping our own roster by getting the best tight end. And so if that means giving up a 3rd and a 5th as like a win-win where we get our tight end and we take the Broncos' number 1 target, that seems like something Harbaugh would do. And after moving back to pick 22, I have no idea for certainty who will be available at this point. But one name that I do think has a good chance of falling to this portion of the draft is Mykel Williams out of Georgia. And at 22, this could be a really good pick. You're not going to find a perfect edge rusher when you're in the 20s of the round 1. But if you are looking for someone who's got the tools, he's got the frame for what could be a really good pass rusher, Williams is your guy. He's 6'5", he's 265 pounds. Yet again, Kirby Smart just pumps these guys out of a factory of these like hand-tailored and chiseled edge rushers that he just keeps finding year after year. Now, he does not have a ton of great production from his time in Athens, but I think you can fairly so chalk some of that up to missing time with an ankle injury / battling through an ankle injury. But in some of the biggest games for the Bulldogs this year, like the SEC Championship game, Williams came to play. So I like this option right here. Another name that I'll just throw your way, Benjamin Morrison. Let's say Williams is gone and the Falcons are saving edge rusher for round 2. Morrison is an interesting name to watch for. He's 6 foot, 190 pounds. Now, unfortunately, we didn't get to see enough of him in 2024. He suffered a season-ending hip injury halfway through the season, but he's very versatile. He can play inside. He can play outside. He's known for his quickness, his fluidity. He's got really good technique altogether, and he's got great ball skills as well. Morrison, over the last couple of years, putting together 9 interceptions for the Fighting Irish. So if you're looking for a guy who can have a nose for the football and make a big play or two, he's your man. I mean, look what he did his first year in South Bend. 6 interceptions, 5 pass breakups. This year, unfortunately, the productivity was not there because, the snaps weren't there due to the injury. And if you can get past the injury and the medicals check out, this could be a really good gem for you in round 2 or late in round 1 of the draft. Before we get on out of here, make sure to like today's video if you haven't already. I would greatly appreciate it. It goes a long way to support the channel, so make sure you scroll on down and hit that thumbs up button. I moved a couple of things over, and I guess it didn't go through. Can you remove player card and all of them? Listicles, play listicles too? Yeah, I did it before the show started. Sorry, you guys get to see once again how the sausage is made. There are a couple of graphics that just weren't quite as I liked them, and I made the changes. They just didn't save. Yeah, that's fine. Player card. Carson, I do agree. A hip injury for a corner, that's concerning. No doubt. I just can't say for certainty whether or not it's a deal breaker. Like Taysom Hill tore every ACL in his body. I think he grew another one just to tear it in college, and he bounced back. So there are a lot of examples of players suffering, scary injuries in college. And Nick Chubb, how about that? Remember him at Georgia? I mean, obviously, the knee injury he suffered. Yeah, so if you had said going into the draft, you can't take Nick Chubb, running back with a pre-existing knee injury, no way, you'd be a fool. But I understand the concern. Carson, the thing is I practiced how to say Princely's last name. And if I were in your shoes, I would be making fun of me as well. The difference is when I'm talking to a wall and a camera and we have all these studio lights on, sometimes your brain just turns off and you completely freeze/forget everything you did before you stepped into the studio. And it sucks, and it's just me not being the best at my job. But I do appreciate the phonetic spelling right there. Pardon? Player card. Any of them for the second segment. I think we're looking good. Another one. Yeah, that's good. Matthew PD fan, I was also wondering the same thing. If I interview Raheem Morris, do you think he'd recognize me? I sound so pretentious thinking, yeah, he would know me from a YouTube channel. My honest gut reaction is probably not. I think other coaches, if I covered their teams, they could know me. But I don't think Raheem is someone who looks to the media. I'm trying to think of an example of I could see Nick Sirianni. He seems like someone who would want to see what people are saying about him. I don't get that vibe from Raheem. I could see this is no longer the case. Josh McDaniels seems like someone who would want to see what people are saying about them. Arthur Smith, I don't think would be that guy. What? Liam Cohen, yeah. Yeah, I don't think Morris is the guy to get suckered into team YouTube channels. There's a slight chance that he has heard of what I do. Like someone has sent him a clip. But I'm just kind of speculating, obviously. And I feel like I don't know the word. I feel so cocky. Yeah, of course he knows what I do. I don't think so. Robert Salah might be another guy that kind of does some name searching. Yeah, I'll keep thinking. Pete Carroll can't even figure out how to get onto YouTube. So no way he's in the know about this at all. Ooh, was Cliff Kingsbury a name searcher? Maybe. I'll say this, though. I do think players do a lot more self-research on themselves and see what people say about them. It's human nature. You gotta look. I would not be surprised if. No, I like saying Robert Salah's name this way. It's more fun. I've done it for the entire time. It's way more fun to say Salah. Yeah, Robert Salah. Let's get into our second segment, though. We got 51 likes, so got to 50. Okay, if you have not liked the video yet, please do so, but we did get to a good number. Who had the worst head coach introduction press conference of all time? So I can remember a couple of them that were not perceived as great. Not everyone loved Dan Campbell's. Yeah, a lot of people made fun of it. Remember, he went up there. One, he kind of looked like a commissioner of a bowling league. He had all these coffees. He was going a million miles an hour. He was talking about biting kneecaps off. It was not the slam dunk that we look back on it now at the time. Other introductions that did not go swimmingly well. Matt Eberflus for the Bears. He was never good at speaking to the media. He got in his own way a couple of times. Adam Gase, that's a great one with the Jets. Adam Gase, yeah, that was yikes. Oh, that was also in the chat. Good one. Mike McDaniel's always been very weird about the way he interacts with reporters. So that has potential for sure. All right, let's get into our second segment, which is all about some cut candidates. I keep stepping on my cord. Well, it's not quite like the other studio. I'm stepping on my tail over here. Grand Limousine with a $20 super chat. Let's go, Grand Limousine. Thank you, as always, for supporting the channel. I got to respond to you. I know I do. And it's getting here soon. So, Grand Limousine, I'll hit you back up soon. I'm using Grand Limousine. At least the plan is to use Grand Limousine for the big day in May. But thank you very much, Grand Limousine, as always, for supporting the channel. Great to see you in the chat. Hey, is Trucker Mike here? I missed you guys last week. I was doing my wedding tasting in Atlanta, so no live show, unfortunately. Unfortunately, a couple of Thursdays have just been not cooperative the last few weeks, but we're back to hopefully a normal track of every Thursday being live. Girthquake, no. I don't think T-Mac is that great of a... Like, that sounds mean. I don't think T-Mac is a first-round receiver. There's a lot to like about him. I am not using a 15th overall pick on him. We got questions coming in from Thomas. Love to see it. Jeremy, big day is May 31st. May 31st. I was about to say the venue too, but then I feel like you guys might show up and Shay would not be happy. Stress enough. If I have to explain to her, like, that's Thomas from Falcons Today. She's not going to find that amusing. Yeah. Let's get into our second segment of the show. Grand Limousine, one more time. Salute to you. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Yeah, so we're going to talk about Atlanta Falcons cut candidates right now. Welcome on into Falcons Today. Coming up on today's episode, we're going to run through some cut candidates for the Dirty Birds. We're a little over a month away until free agency, so we still have a bit of time to go, but I do think this serves as a good opportunity to set a little bit of a base layer down for what to expect as we get closer to free agency, because the Falcons are going to be making some level of roster moves because they are currently in the red according to Over the Cap when it comes to cap space. They are $11 million over the projected NFL salary cap, and they're either going to have to move on from some players or restructure some contracts. There's pros and cons to both, but for today's video, I want to look at players they could move on from. The first one is quarterback Kirk Cousins. No, you are not moving on from Kirk to generate cap space. That is not how the cap works. That is not the reason why I am discussing Kirk Cousins today. We have all been, getting this shoved down our throats, and I'm part of it too when it comes to whether or not Cousins should be on the roster for 2025. Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris have expressed a lot of interest in bringing him back as a backup, Personally, I think that's just smoke and mirrors, trying to keep his value up to see if anyone would trade for him. If they just come out and say, yeah, we plan to release him, well, then no one's going to trade for him. So they're trying to pretend like they still value him a lot. Ultimately, that $10 million roster bonus coming on the 5th day of the new league year seems like a pretty penny that Arthur Blank may not want to pay for someone who is going to be a backup, on top of a $27.5 million base salary. I understand that there are no financial gains to be had by moving on from Kirk Cousins. But I do think from a locker room presence and a natural human feel, I'm looking at what the Broncos did, which is bite the bullet, move on from Russell Wilson, draft a rookie quarterback, and not have this ginormous elephant in the room of, so your backup is the guy who we gave this huge contract to. To me, that does not seem like an environment that Michael Penix will thrive in. I think the Falcons need to get a backup quarterback who wants to be a backup. You think Kirk Cousins is just going to sit down and go, I'm ready to hold the clipboard? No. He keeps his helmet strapped up when he's still on the sidelines to backup. You want a backup who's there to help the rookie or the second-year quarterback develop and learn, not someone who's there trying to get back on the field. I want a career backup, and I don't think Kirk Cousins is the best man to help Penix develop. So I would move on from Cousins altogether. I think that is what's best for Penix and for the Falcons, to not have this incredibly uncomfortable scenario that 2 years from now we're going to read about in an article from The Athletic of how all the players in the locker room thought it was really strange that Cousins was still there and he kept trying to still be the starter, and it got in the way of Penix being the best version of himself. So let me know what you think. Do you want Kirk to come back as the backup? Financially, you don't gain anything. From a human standpoint, do you break up with your girlfriend, find someone new, and let your ex sleep in your basement? No, you don't. So don't have your ex with your new girlfriend. You keep those two apart at all times. Moving on to the next cut candidate for the Falcons, and it is a pair of players, actually. Defensive tackle Grady Jarrett along with David Onyemata. I don't like talking about cutting Grady Jarrett, but we do have to face the music. And that is, these are two guys who are on the wrong side of 30 who could be cap casualties. Starting with Grady Jarrett, and then we'll get to Onyemata. From a financial side of things, there is a lot to gain by moving on from him. He's got a $20 million cap hit coming up, only a $4 million dead cap, meaning $16 million in cap savings. Keep in mind, you're $11 million in the red. That would put you $5 million in the green just by moving on from him. He'll be 32 years old in a few months. He is coming off 2 years now of a torn ACL. He may not have that step he once had. I could see the Falcons looking at this as more of a business decision than, hey, here's a player who's been in a locker room for almost a decade now and has been the leader of our defense almost from day one of him joining this team. I would personally keep Grady Jarrett. I would bite the bullet of the $20 million cap hit. You can restructure that. You can spread it over a couple of years. You can add a void year or two. I would prefer to have Grady Jarrett on this team. I think he's too big of a leader in this locker room to move on for $16 million in cap savings. Onyemata, on the other hand, he's a little bit new. He's not been with the Falcons from day one. He's a little bit older as well. He's going to turn 33 in November. Now, he has $8 million in cap savings to be had. So not as big of a cap saving compared to Grady Jarrett, but he's still playing at a high level. By high level, I mean he is still a starting nose tackle in the NFL. At least he was last year. And we know Bill Belichick's old saying, it's better to move on from a player 1 year too early than 1 year too late. So if the Falcons feel like, hey, it's only downhill from here, then I could see them looking at $8 million in savings. Plus, you've got some young players like Rook and Brandon Dorlus trying to break through the glass and get a larger role on this defense. However, ultimately, if I had to make a prediction, I'm leaning more towards the safe side from Onyemata. just think he played too well for them to start shedding players on a defense that did not play well enough to warrant moving on from some of your better players that you did have. This defense needs to get better. I don't think the best way to improve the defense is by cutting some of the guys that were at least halfway decent last year up front. We're going to look at the other two players in just a moment, but first things first, a big special shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players' stat projections. Basketball season is heating up, and Prize Picks is the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. Prize Picks now offers Venmo and MasterCard for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this season. So download the app today and use code CLNS, and you'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup, which can include taking the more on Patrick Mahomes' passing yards for the big game at 0.5. Once again, download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Getting back on track. After the pair of interior defensive linemen, next up I want to look at Caleb McGarry, the right tackle for the Falcons. Similar to the last two guys, this is not some obvious slam dunk. He stinks. Move on from him. I know that he's not the most popular player for a reason that I think is a little bit dated from his early days with the Falcons. He's still a quality starting tackle in the NFL. And teams do not like moving on from quality starters at cornerstone positions like tackle and corner. But he does have $14 million in cap savings to his name. Like we started the video off with, there's $11 million to make up for. And if they feel like $14 million is too big of a savings to pass on for someone who is a right tackle, as a run-first style tackle, in an offense with a lefty quarterback. Which brings me to the big question that Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot will have to answer. How much trust do they have in McGarry when it comes to pass protection? He's a run-first guy, and he is going to be taking care of Michael Penix's blind side. That is a little bit of a concern for me. You look at his PFF grades. On the left, his run blocking grades. On his right, his pass blocking grades. 14 points higher in 2024. 7 points higher in 2023. 25 points higher in 2022. 22 points higher in 2021. He has consistently been an above average quality run blocking tackle. And he has consistently been an average at best pass protecting right tackle. So the Falcons have a big decision to make what they want to do with having lefty Michael Penix and McGarry on his blind side. I don't think they would love to move on from McGarry, which leads me to one possibility. They just Yankee swap. Put Jake Matthews at right tackle because he's a pass protector first, and put McGarry at left tackle. He'll fit in nicely as a run blocking guy with a lefty quarterback. It's not as easy as we like to think it could be at times to switch offensive tackles. Mid-game, you're in a pinch, okay. Whole season, hey, Jake, you've been with this team the longest. You've always played left tackle. We want you to do everything the opposite. Before, you had your left foot kick back first. Now it's your right foot. In a lot of ways, it's like brushing your teeth with your left hand compared to your right hand. Everything's reversed. And Matthews is future Falcons Ring of Honor player in my eyes, and a great starting left tackle in this league. He could, over the offseason, train himself to become a right tackle. I'm just not sure if that's the play for the Falcons. If they feel like that's a better route than just moving on from McGarry, keeping Matthews at his comfortable left tackle position, taking our $14 million in cap savings, and finding a new, cheaper right tackle who's better at pass protection. That's what I'm wrestling with at the moment here. All right, before we get any further, or before we wrap up today's episode with one more player, make sure to subscribe. We're going to have free daily Falcons news and rumors content coming your way. There is no one out there that's putting out as much content as we are here at Chat Sports. So go ahead, scroll down, and subscribe if you're looking for the #1 Falcons YouTube channel. After McGarry, the next player I want to look at here is D'Angelo Malone. This is a move because he's just not worthy of a roster spot anymore. Unlike the middle three guys, where they are good players, but there are major cap savings to be had. No, with Malone, I'm struggling to figure out a reason why he would be on this team's roster next year. There are, $1.4 million in cap savings, give or take a few $100,000 to be had. So not a ton, but not nothing. But more importantly, he just does not have a role on this defense. This was a defense that was begging for someone to step up and get the quarterback. They had 10 sacks in the first 11 weeks. The job was there for the taking. And D'Angelo Malone played a whopping 90 defensive snaps this year. 8%. Now, he did contribute a lot on special teams. So if the Falcons feel like he is worthy of a roster spot solely for his special teams value, okay. I can warm up to that idea, but you'd only be keeping him for special teams. And at this stage, with 1 year left in his contract, for a former third-round pick, $1.4 million in cap savings, very quickly the pros start to outweigh the cons here. So I'm not really in love with the idea of Malone coming back for another season. All in all, if you were to move on from all those players right there, or some of them, we can throw up at least the cap savings that you'd have there, Reed. And I believe the number that I cooked up was, $40.2 million in cap savings if you made every single one of those moves. Not making much from Kirk Cousins. 0. Maybe 1 or 2 between Jarrett and Onyemata. And then same goes for McGarry. There will be moves that we made because they got to get under the salary cap. But once more, here are the 5 cut candidates. You guys can let me know in the comment section who you predict will end up getting cut. Would love to hear from you all. I always enjoy going into the comment section and reading your replies. So this is a two-way street here. It's a two-way, conversation, and I want to get your thoughts in the comment section below. All right. Nicholas says McGarry. Oh, Trucker Mike, let's go. Let's play the game. Trucker Mike. I'm ready. I also think Trucker Mike always tunes in at this time exactly, right before the mailbag. Everyone, if you don't know, we have a frequent viewer who is a trucker, and we always try to predict what state, typically in the Southeast, he is driving through. Reed, unfortunately, you have had your First Amendment taken away from you today because the studio we are in does not have a microphone for the producer. So you can talk. You barely hear him in the background. I'll relay Reed's state selection. You like Florida? All right, I'm going to go with the Trucker Mike tracker. We've seen him in Alabama, Illinois, North Carolina, I think it was. Louisiana. Was it Louisiana? Maybe. I'm gonna go with Virginia. I think I just keep guessing Tennessee. I can't remember if he was actually in Tennessee. So get your predictions in right now. No hints. The only hint would be if you're in a unusual corner of the country. It's Virginia. Let's go. That's big. That's an absolute tone setter for the weekend. I'm buying a lottery ticket tonight. Let's go. Virginia. It's for lovers, and I'm loving it right now. Damn, that feels good. Fuck yeah. Let's go, Trucker Mike. Salute to you. Trucker Mike right now, if you could, a little honk. It's going to scare the person in front of you, but I'm going to feel the vibration of it all the way to Dallas, Texas. Now, we have a mailbag. So use hashtag Falcons or Super Chat. Ooh, I keep stepping on this cord. How about that? That should hopefully fix it. Yeah, maybe not. So use hashtag Falcons or Super Chat. We got a couple of Super Chats today. So if you want to skip the line and guarantee a spot on screen, Super Chat, and we'll throw it on for all of our beautiful, wonderful, intelligent viewers to see. Trucker Mike, an institution of Falcons Today. I mean, this show is not where it is without our friend on the road. What if Trucker Mike ends up being like a drug dealer, and this whole time he's just running like crack cocaine? All of a sudden, like, the FBI knocks on my door. I'm all over his search history. And like, do you know anything about Trucker Mike? Like, I know he was in Virginia. Like, yeah, you want to know why? I'm like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. I keep saying Jersey. Jesse Joyer. I'm sorry, Jesse. I'm trying to remember. Walter Mike. That's great. That's funny. Walter Mike is excellent. I need to rewatch Breaking Bad. Really? Breaking Bad was one of the first shows I watched when I got Netflix my freshman year of high school. First show I ever watched on Netflix was The League, because all my friends were talking about it, and I was like, I want to get. I remember going home and asking my mom, like, can we get Netflix so I can watch The League? I also rewatched The League. Yeah, I rewatched it last year. It aged well. But it is kind of funny to see some of the names. Like, I think I mentioned this on a Falcons video 6-7 months ago, where they have players come on screen for cameos. There was a Falcons. I think there's only one Falcons player in the entire show. And I was watching. I was like, is that Brent Grimes? I was like, thinking of like the timeline. I'm like, I think that was his number. That looks like him. And I can't think of a more notable Falcons DB from that time period. I'm like, it's Brent fucking Grimes. I do need to watch Better Call Saul. I never got to that one. I heard it's great. Now, let's get into a mailbag edition of Falcons Today. Before we start our mailbag, quick request to go ahead and click the share button down below. Send our video to a friend or a family member that loves the Falcons. I'm just trying to grow this channel and get ourselves up to 35,000 subscribers. And one of the best ways to do that is to get more eyeballs on our content. Now, our first question is coming in on today's mailbag from a super chat, which, by the way, was during our live show every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. AJ asking, they have to cut or extend Caleb McGarry. Which do they do? I don't think they're going to extend him. I don't think they want to jump into bed long term with a new blindside tackle for Michael Penix after watching McGarry and Penix overlap for the last 3 games of the season. I think the options are cut him and take $14 million in cap savings, or keep him, let him play out the rest of his contract. He's got 1 year left on it. And if he plays well and he proves to be a good pass protector in a new role, then you bring it back and you re-sign him. If he's still a run-first oriented tackle and it's just not working well with Penix as a lefty, then you make finding a new tackle your number one priority in the 2026 NFL Draft. Jaden Fellows, if you were making the draft decisions, what would you do? This is my dream job right here. The draft is one of my favorite sporting events across all sporting. Like, I love the draft more than like March Madness. That sounds crazy. That's true. If I were Terry Fontenot and I'm making the picks and 15 rolls up and everyone with some level of realism is available, I think my pecking order I put out before is Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. If he's gone, I would be interested in seeing if anyone wants to trade up. The Falcons need to get more draft picks. They only have 5 picks right now. A first, a second, a fourth, and 2 sevenths. If you can't find anyone to trade up with, I'm spending the next 2 months between 2 players. James Peterson out of Tennessee and Mike Green out of Marshall. And that is what I'm sinking my teeth into. And right now I'm leaning towards James Pierce out of Tennessee. Carson, do we move on from Kyle Pitts this season? I think no. Fontenot and Morris are in a prove-it year, and I think they need Pitts to break out instead of drafting another tight end and hoping he's good. I hear you're saying, Carson, and you're making good points. I'm going to disagree. I think yes, for a few reasons. After the season was over, Terry Fontenot did not hold back on Kyle Pitts. Just flat out called him disappointing, underwhelming, saying he knows it. And you don't hear that often from coaches and GMs about players. They don't particularly like speaking to the media about their players. So when they go out of their way to throw one somewhat under the bus, that sounds alarm bells to me. I'm thinking they're looking at their $11 million salary cap hole they are in right now and seeing $10+ million in guaranteed money going to a tight end who was being outsnapped by Charlie Werner at times down the stretch last year. So I think they're going to take the cap savings, take the draft pick, and move on from Pitts altogether. Dirty Birds, could you see the Falcons trading for Myles Garrett? I could see the Falcons calling the Browns for Myles Garrett. I do not see the Cleveland Browns trading Myles Garrett away. Their GM, Andrew Berry, at the Senior Bowl made it explicitly clear that they are not interested in trading Garrett away. So, to be honest with you, no. I do not foresee Myles Garrett coming to Atlanta. He had made some comments about not wanting to be a part of a rebuild. So if he were to be open to being traded, do you guys think the 8-9 Falcons team would be at the top of his list? I'm not trying to poo-poo the Falcons, but if he wants to avoid a rebuild, I think he wants to go to a more guaranteed team, like someone who just made the playoffs or won a playoff game, not someone who is still trying to check the playoff appearance box. So honestly, I think there is a less than 1% chance that Garrett comes to Atlanta. Now, if you're the Falcons, would you offer up your 15th overall pick this year and your first-round pick next year for Myles Garrett? For me, I would, if I were Atlanta. Like, if Myles Garrett entered this draft, he's not falling to 15. He's going top 3. I know he's pushing 30 years old soon, but he's still playing at a all-pro defensive player of the year type of level. So the Titans probably are looking for a quarterback, but he's not. He might just go right back to the Browns, number 2. Lav S, next one up. Will Raheem and Terry target physical traits over production in college? Great question, Lav. Hard to say with Raheem. We just don't have enough data points as to players he likes in the draft. With Fontenot, though, we're talking about someone who was a scout with the New Orleans Saints. So that's a type of GM that likes to build within the draft. That's not the case for all GMs, though. And I think if you are someone who is building within the draft, then you're actually maybe more open-minded for all types of prospects. Let me elaborate. If you're a GM who likes to build maybe a little bit through trades and free agency, you might look at the draft as too big of an unknown. So you're going to take the best athletes and trust your coaches to develop them. But if you're a GM who came up the draft or came up the scout pipeline, then you're going to look at the draft and you're going to bet on your eyes a lot, right? You're going to go with the eye test and go, I watched this kid and I know he's good and I don't care what he ran at the combine or what his tests came back from at the Senior Bowl in his interviews. So I don't think they are people that just exclusively look at physical traits. They did that with Rook, but with Michael Penix, it wasn't like he was just completely, sculpted from God as an athlete. He got a cannon of an arm, but he's not some terrific runner or anything like that. You look at Braylon Trice, he was a very productive player at Washington. Not the greatest athlete. We just only have one draft to go off of, but I'm leaning towards no, Lav. Jeremy, which of the current players in the roster do you think have the highest possibility of being cap casualties? I'd say Caleb McGarry and David Onyemata. I would be willing to bet that they bring back Grady Jarrett because of his role in the locker room. Onyemata's 33, 32, $8 million in cap savings, whereas McGarry, 29, 1 year left on his deal, and $14 million in cap savings. Those are two guys that I could see being a big cap casualty just because of the savings, not because they are no longer good players. Thomas, do the Falcons grab a wide receiver for their first pick in the draft? No, absolutely not. There is not a receiver in this draft class that would go in the first round of last year's draft class. Seriously. Like Teteroa McMillan out of Arizona, if he was in last year's draft class, Marvin Harrison goes before him. Malik Neighbors goes before him. Roma Dunze goes before him. Brian Thomas goes before him. I don't think T-Mac goes in the first round of last year's draft class. Now, he might go round one this year because someone's just going to be that desperate for a wide receiver. But I don't see T-Mac and, hey, the draft is a crapshoot. I don't have a crystal ball. All this could look really dumb in a few years, and I'll be cold takes exposed. I don't see McMillan as a receiver that's going to be a true big difference maker for a team. We're going to look at more questions in just a moment, but first things first, a big special shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has an awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. So if you want to go to a Hawks game, for example, download the Game Time app, and you can see all the great deals they have going on at State Farm Arena. You can see flash deals and zone deals. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. I put all that information for you guys in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Stuart, given all the ridiculous success of UGA players in the NFL, especially in recent years defensively, why do the Falcons rarely pick Georgia players? I understand the question. Let's kind of go through it case by case, because I don't think that there's an agenda in Flowery Branch to just boycott Athens. Last year, it was clear the Falcons fell in love with Michael Penix, and that was what they were going to go to in round one. They did end up taking Zion Logue for what it's worth in round 6. Now, I don't have off the top of my head memory of when they took their day 2 and day 3 picks, where Georgia Bulldogs went before or after. I really liked, if I remember correctly, Kamari Lassiter, the corner, last year, and they took Rook. If they could do it over again, I think they take Kamari for how good he was with the Texans. So, point to you there. Year before that, they went Bijan in round 1. I think that was Arthur Smith going, we're going to run the football, and we have a generational type running back. Not a diss against any Bulldogs out there, but that's what we want to do. And then the year before that, they needed a new wide receiver as they moved on from Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, and Drake London has turned out to be a great pick for them. So I get what you're saying, and some of it's probably just a little bit of we had a bigger priority in the first round, and it did not include defense. If they go the next 3 years and take defenders in the first round and don't take a Bulldog, you'll have a better case, Stuart. Gary, the Marshall guy won't be there at 15. Gary, I love this because it's January, and GMs don't even know who they're taking. But we know who they're taking. And I'm not saying this to ridicule or mock you. This is why I really love the NFL draft. Gary is no smarter than I am when it comes to who's going to go where in this NFL draft. Like, it's a crapshoot. If I had told you if Gary had messaged me last year this time saying there won't be a defender off the board the first 14 picks, we would have laughed at you. So, Gary, he might not be there at 15. He is rising up boards with the way he performed at the Senior Bowl. He's the FBS sack leader last year. I think the concern that some teams are going to have is, even though I don't think it's a concern, maybe they just count him a pick or two because of him playing at Marshall, which I think is dumb. They might have concerns a little bit over the size because I do think he projects to be an outside linebacker. I don't think he's big enough to be a true Calais Campbell defensive end. At 251 pounds, he would need to add a little bit of weight. So if a few teams picking in the top 14 that are looking for an edge rusher don't think he'd be a good fit in their system, but someone else could, I could see Green falling as a result. But time will tell, Gary. We will find out in April. Jesse Joyner 80. If you had to make a trade for the Falcons, what would it look like? Player for player, player for draft picks. How about this one? Ready? How about Kyle Pitts for Sam Hubbard? Or Kyle Pitts for Trey Hendrickson from the Bengals? Kyle Pitts for a draft pick from Cincinnati. The Bengals are probably looking for a new weapon. They need help at tight end, although Gesicki played well for them last year, so maybe they don't need that much help. But they are likely losing T. Higgins. So I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to make a move for a tight end like Kyle Pitts to keep the passing attack up for Joe Burrow, and they're not going to be paying Trey Hendrickson or Sam Hubbard what they are looking for, and I could see the Falcons having interest, so that might be a kind of a rare starter for starter swap. You hardly ever see that. Is Villa, what are some of the easier fixes this offseason? Well, the fixes have to come defensively. And I think if we're talking about where you want to start on defense, it's got to be the pass rush. So the easier fixes, I'm not quite sure what you have in mind, but I would say going pass rusher in round one and double dipping as well in free agency and bringing in guys who can actually do the job. One name, I'm a little thrown off by what you're really looking for behind this question because I don't know if there's a simple fix. Like, bring back D. Alford. I know that's not a very popular answer, but he's an exclusive rights free agent. The Falcons can make him a qualifying offer, which is a vet minimum deal, and he can either take it or retire and go work elsewhere. Like, meaning go work at Chick-fil-A or the post office. Like, not play football. So that might be too good of a value for the Falcons to pass on. That's maybe my easier answer for you, but I'm sure it's not quite what you had in mind. Some of them nuggets. Can Grady Jarrett be good trade capital for a splash trade rather than cutting him? Who's going to trade for him? He's got 1 year left on his deal. He's 32 years old. He's got like a $16-ish million base salary. I don't know who's lining up. Why would you trade? How about this? The draft pick you used to acquire Grady Jarrett, just use on a defensive line in this year's class. It's a loaded class, and you get someone for longer, for cheaper, and younger. I don't think you're going to find a trade partner. Plus, you really want to trade? That's okay. Do you really want to trade your kind of captain of the defense in a lot of ways? May not be a good message to the rest of the team and the fan base. All right, that will do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, subscribe, like the video as well, and I'll be sure to catch up with all of you later. There we go. Great questions, by the way. I'm not going to lie. You guys actually, sometimes we get some, not silly questions, but I don't know. If the Saints hire Kellen Moore, should we be concerned? It would be a pretty decent lifeline for how bad this coaching search has gone. They're the only one that has not hired a coach. And here's the crazy thing. If they don't land Kellen Moore, which they can't land him until after the Super Bowl, I have no godly idea what their plan after that is. Everyone that's good is gone. And on top of that, whoever you do end up hiring is going to have a very difficult time of putting together a staff because all the other good coaches that were recently fired that have now been rehired as a coordinator are taken up. Dennis Allen to Chicago. Matt Eberflus to Dallas. A very important part of a first-time head coach is building a good staff. Surrounding yourself with people that can help you. It's going to be very difficult for a first-time head coach to do that for how late in the game they are right now. I do not like the Saints' outlook at the moment. Robert Kelly, I saw a rumor of trading Pitts to the Ravens for Andrews. Would you do this trade? Yeah, Mark Andrews is not as old as you might think. He's not even 30 yet. He's 28, 29. Yeah, I think I'd be open to it. The thing is, you're just not getting anything from Pitts right now. He was not a part of the offense. I know that Andrews' stock is very low right now. It's an interesting idea, Robert. I'd be game. I'd be game, honestly. We got Boomstick in the chat. Love to see it. Okay. I'll end by reading Redbot's question, unless we get a super chat, and then we'll continue staying live. If Drew doesn't come back and we trade down in the first for a 4th-round pick and select Jared Wilson from Georgia. I have not done my research on centers in this year's draft class. That'll be probably closer to February, March. Right now, I'm just working through their biggest needs at this moment. Drew Dahlman, though, was a 4th-round draft pick, so it's not a bad plan to replace Drew Dahlman with a 4th-round pick since you found Drew Dahlman in the 4th round. One of the better picks by Terry Fontenot. Okay, that's going to do it for us on today's live show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it, and I'll be sure to see everyone over the next few days with more Falcons content.